The Ohio State coaching staff is complete, and as hinted on before I left, Matt Patricia was a leading candidate for Ohio State. He is now a defensive coordinator at Ohio State. Welcome to Snap Judgments. I am Austin Ward. That is Jeremy Birmingham. We got a lot of feelings out about this potential hire yesterday, and as I landed in the Las Vegas airport on the way to Disneyland, this news was reported first by Pete Thamel, confirmed by you shortly thereafter. Ohio State goes and gets Matt Patricia, former Detroit Lions head coach and New England Patriots defensive coordinator. Those are his main claims to fame, and now he is working with the Buckeyes.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it is a diversion from where Ryan Day originally wanted to go with this hire. I'm not sure what exactly happened in the last week or so, but it seems like the primary objective went from continuity on the defensive staff to finding another guy that fit the role of head coach of the defense that Jim Knowles had in the last couple of years. And I don't know if that's because Ryan Day is realizing he's going to be needed so much more on the offense because of how youthful that staff is or what. But I'm wearing this shirt for a reason. And it is that when you're the national champ and you're now a head coach who's one of 3 national championship winning coaches in college football, you are going to get a little bit of leeway. You're going to be given an opportunity to make some decisions that maybe other people would not have agreed with prior to that. But Ryan Day has the cachet now to do what he feels is best for his program. And, you made a joke about it the other day on Slack, just, off camera, but somebody had to take over for Nick Saban when it comes to being a head coach reclamation project. And maybe Ohio State sees an opportunity to do that. There's no doubt you're getting a guy that's won 3 Super Bowls, who's been an NFL head coach. Like those are very real accolades and very real opportunities and experiences that are hard to find when it comes to hiring, especially in college football in the way that it is right now. And so I see the value there for Ryan Day, but the bipolar nature of Matt Patricia's reputation, I think, is something that people will pay close attention to over these next few months as he gets settled into Columbus.
Yeah, I mean, make no mistake, you use those words for a reason. This is a reclamation project for Matt Patricia. He was, in the background with the Eagles 2 years ago, was forced into maybe a difficult situation for himself to try and take over, but it didn't work. He wasn't hired at North Carolina, wasn't full-time a year ago. So when we talked with some skepticism about this hire and why it would make sense for Ohio State on Tuesday, I mean, that's why. His reputation for managing people has not been great. That's followed him throughout his career. Now, that's not uncommon at New England, and they won a lot of games with an abrasive personality at the very top. So I'm not saying that this can't work, because I think that was not my point. Like, it's just an interesting one to make this the guy who's leading a college defense without that level of experience. Now, can he draw up any kind of defense that Ohio State might want to run with very good personnel and lots of good talent already on hand? I bet that he can. He knows a million times more about defensive football than I will ever learn in my entire life. So my skepticism is more about his reputation, more about lack of familiarity with college. He can take this position and recruit just as much as Jim Knowles. I'm sure of that. Like, that was hardly at all. I don't think that's what this position really entails, but I do think that there is a huge kernel of truth to the fact that if Ryan Day now feels like he has to be more involved in some form or fashion with the offense just because of the alignment of the staff and a little bit of a bet on the future, then he needs to be hands-off with the defense. And maybe he feels like with Matt Guerrieri and Tim Walton, they're not quite at that point. And the head coaching experience at the NFL level then helps set Matt Patricia apart. I think that has to be the reason.
Yeah, I can't think of any other reason that makes sense. I mean, again, when you're talking football, he was a college assistant coach for 5 years, but that was 25 years ago. And it was as a defensive line coach at Amherst and a grad assistant at Syracuse. Hasn't been in the college game in 22 years. So that's a long time, and a lot of things have changed. But to your point, I don't believe this is a situation or a circumstance where Matt Patricia is being brought in to be a college coach. I honestly think that there is a component to this in this new world of recruiting that is so NIL based and so NIL driven. It is less and less important to have super personable guys in the building, because Matt Patricia doesn't have to do anything other than talk to players when they get on campus and show them his rings and show them how he won championships with the Patriots, and to show them how he can get them to the NFL. And that is ultimately the goal of every player who comes through the door at Ohio State, is how do I get to the NFL? Matt Patricia certainly knows how to do that. The question is going to be, how does he mesh with Tim Walton, who will be now elevated to the co-defensive coordinator spot at Ohio State? Matt Guerrieri is being promoted to a passing coordinator role on the defense. Obviously, there's still the question about Larry Johnson and how this ties in with Larry. Larry is not always the easiest person to work with, and I think anybody who's worked with him at Ohio State or anywhere else will agree to that. But Matt Patricia's defenses and what he has come from is a guy that is known for running a 3-4 and much more multiple looks than Ohio State's space 4-3. And that has been, as we've talked to Ryan Day in the last week or so, a major part of this discussion. What is the future of the Ohio State defense going to look like? And I think that by making this decision, and not just the surrendering it to a new defensive head coach, but by saying Matt Patricia is going to come in, and like that history of defense is very different than what Ohio State has run with. And so I do think that maybe, you started this off by saying the coaching staff is complete. And I'm interested to see how the conversation from here goes between Larry Johnson and Matt Patricia, because I don't get the impression that Matt Patricia will be as willing or as docile as Jim Knowles was when it came to Larry Johnson getting his way. So that there's going to be some interesting conversations, but the first ones are going to be between Caleb Downs and Matt Patricia. And I would bet a couple donuts that Matt Patricia and Caleb Downs sat down and talked on Tuesday or Monday when he came in to do his interview.
I mean, I would say, given the stakes for Ohio State, having Caleb Downs being involved in that process was almost mandatory and a necessity. And to your point as well, this could be an interim situation where the staff is full. That wouldn't surprise me. There were signals given, I guess now a week and a half ago, before Larry Johnson met with Ryan Day, that it sounded like he was anticipating coming back for one more season. You and I did some, digging and reporting on this last week after the meeting with Larry Johnson and Ryan Day. It was like, well, Larry is okay waiting to see who the last person on the staff is, what that means for him, if that's someone he thinks he can work with, if that's someone that he thinks he can, contribute a scheme to or bring along the defensive lineman, which, that is a daunting proposition, replacing those 4 seniors up front for Ohio State. So, does he want to do that? Is he part of that transition in the next step, which is really, I think, in a lot of ways designed to help Matt Patricia get another job next year at this time, if we're being totally honest. I think the part of me that, once we talked to Ryan Day publicly in a press conference about this hire, like, did Matt Patricia bring this idea to you and then it sparked it? Did you identify him all along? It was not a name that we heard a lot about until the last couple of days. I wonder if there was an element where Matt Patricia's like, Bill O'Brien saw that and he was able to parlay that immediately into a job. Chip Kelly did 1 year. He got $6 million to go back to the NFL level. He needs an opportunity like this. And we've seen Nick Saban give those opportunities to people, whether they were former Patriots or just discarded coaches like Steve Sarkisian after he was fired at USC, and then get back on their feet and move back on to the next level. So maybe there's some element of both. Maybe this was always somebody that Ryan Day had in mind to be a head coach in the defense, although the early indications were that Matt Guerrieri and Tim Walton were going to play more prominent roles. And the truth is that they still are going to, I think, in the long-term vision for Ohio State's defense, because even as we sit here right now, these are snap judgments. These are not finalized decisions or analysis because we don't know how it's going to work out. It's hard for me to imagine a long-term future for Matt Patricia at Ohio State, personally, for me. And I don't imagine that he wants that.
No, and I don't think that's, we've talked about this in the last couple of weeks as Jim Knowles and as Chip Kelly has moved on. The reality is, for assistant coaches and coordinators, it's never supposed to be a long-term tenure. It's not generally meant to work that way unless you're someone like Phil Parker, who's like very tied to Kirk Ferentz or someone like that. It is not the new school approach for coaches. And most of the time, these head coaches want men to come in and give different insight and different analysis and different perspective, and then they move on and you grow and you continue to learn as a coach. Now, with Matt Patricia, the one thing that you have with him, the reports about his prickly personality and all that stuff are out there. There's never been like a hint or a whiff of off the field stuff or anything. I mean, this is just a football guy. He's a football coach. And it
Well,
will be
there's been a whiff. It didn't materialize in anything.
Sure. I mean, nothing in the last, since he's been a coach. Obviously, there were issues with him off the field when he was a 23-year-old man that he had to deal with, and that's not our place to talk about it. He was cleared of or whatever. So, we talked about this on Tuesday at Roosters. Ryan Day built up a lot of goodwill in the last 2 months, and this is certainly going to test it, because there's going to be people who see this hire and question it wholeheartedly. There's going to be others who say, hey, look, we weren't sure about Brian or Bill O'Brien or Chip Kelly or why you're hiring these guys, and those turned out. So it really does come down to a matter of how much you trust Ryan Day's judgment. I think he's earned a little bit of leeway in that respect, as I said earlier, and it's going to provide some very interesting conversation over the next couple months. I'm excited for the first time we get to talk to Matt Patricia in the team room, because, when Jeff Hafley came in 2019, nobody really had any idea about who he was, and he blew us away immediately. Justin Fry did the same thing when we first had an opportunity to really talk to him. Obviously, Chip Kelly was a seasoned professional when it comes to talking to the media as a former head coach, and so he was great. I'm interested to see if the perception matches the reality, because when it came to guys like Chip Kelly, it certainly didn't. So it is interesting oftentimes how opinions are skewed by the fan bases that these coaches had been with prior to Ohio State or prior to their newest job. So it's certainly going to be interesting. The thing is, I know Bobby Carpenter loves him. Bobby Carpenter had an opportunity to play for Matt Patricia in New England, said that Matt was really instrumental in teaching Bobby the whole defense. And even though he wasn't a position coach, was a really good teacher. So that was obviously 10, 12 years ago, but the reputation of him with players that have been through there, it doesn't seem to be sullied. I think a lot of the sour feeling started with his role with Detroit and how he handled the Lions and where he went from there.
Well, and I think that, to be fair and to give the benefit of the doubt to anyone, you look at, you have a chance to grow and mature as you get older. And maybe there's an element from Matt Patricia where he's been humbled by the last couple of years and the last couple coaching cycles. I think if you were looking at, Bill O'Brien, we had some of the same skepticism initially. Even just in 2 weeks, the reviews for what he was doing and the way he was working with the Ohio State coaching staff were glowing. If we did not know Ryan Day and Chip Kelly's personal relationship at this time a year ago, there would have been 129 other fan bases or NFL franchises who'd say, good luck with Chip Kelly. He's an interesting person and difficult for some people to work with. So, we'll see if that becomes the case or not for Matt Patricia. There's no way for us to know, but that hire is now official. I don't know how much of the sound of the slot machines back here has come through or if this video worked, but those are makeshift snap judgments about the hiring for Ohio State. We're going to have way more on this. Maybe not me specifically.
No, Bill and I will talk about it for tomorrow morning's daily as well to dive into a little bit more. I'm sure Bill's opinion on Matt Patricia is more feverish than either of ours, I've noticed.
Well, I mean, look, we don't know how it's going to work out. And I think if we're saying right here, just what is the snap judgment? For me, it is surprise. And that doesn't mean that I don't think it can work out. I would say, as I prefaced it, the guy knows a ton about football, and he's been a head coach at the NFL level, and he was very successful under one of the most or the most successful NFL coach of all time. So what he learned from that and how that applies to Ohio State, we're going to find out. But I think you would have to – I'm not going to make you speak for me, but if there's one word for snap judgments, Matt Patricia is an Ohio State defensive coordinator. It's surprise.
That would be it. Again, I'm not saying it can't work. I think Ryan Day has earned the opportunity to make these decisions for himself. He's got the leeway. He's got the capital right now, but it certainly will test it. And I hope for everyone's sake that is an Ohio State fan. And here I am. I'm not hiding it. Homer Berm in full effect. It is a kind of a wait and see situation, but it was a wait and see situation for Jim Knowles. The first year he was there was pretty rough. People wanted him gone. Chip Kelly, like you said, I mean, it's never been a situation where Ryan Day's made a hire that everyone was immediately like, oh yes, I love that, except for like James Laurinaitis. So that was that one seemed pretty cut and dried though. But yeah, there's a lot to learn about Bill O'Brien, and we're going to do that. I'm sure Bill will learn and dive.
Not Bill O'Brien.
Not Bill O'Brien, Matt Patricia. They're basically the same guy. Just one
A
plays
lot of
off.
similarities.
One coaches offense, one coaches defense. I'm sure Bill will dive more into like the schematic and football nerds stuff that comes with it. And then hopefully we'll get a chance in the next week or so to be back in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center and getting fully updated from Ryan Day about the entire staff and where things go from here, because we also haven't had a chance to talk to the early enrollees yet. And here we are mid-February. That time is coming. So hopefully we get that knocked out and that you can enjoy whatever you're doing in California.
You know what I'm doing. All right. Yeah. So makeshift version of Snap Judgments. I apologize for any difficulties on mine. I am in the Las Vegas airport on the way to Disneyland, but certainly we had to react to this news. It is seismic, at least in Columbus, but I'm not there. Berm's not either, just for the record, but making do where we can, and a lot more to come with Berm and Bill on the podcast daily, talking about Matt Patricia joining the Buckeyes. That will be coming tomorrow, and then Ryan Day's conversation with Berm and May for the 2020 Forever series that will start on Friday. So that's what's coming the rest of the week. These, though, have been Snap Judgments on the podcast. He's Berm. I'm Austin. We will talk to you later.